The crystal wine glasses clinked as another round of insults made their way around our family's weekly dinner table. The same mansion, the same judgments, the same condescending smiles I'd endured for the past 3 years. "So, Alexandra," my father began, cutting into his perfectly cooked Wagyu steak, "still at that consulting firm? What was it called again?" I took a careful sip of wine, thinking about my corner office on the 50th floor of Nova Industries. Not that they knew it was my company. To them, I was just another low-level employee at some insignificant firm. "Summit Consulting," I replied quietly. "My cover for the past 3 years while I built Nova Industries into the largest technology manufacturing company in the country." "Right?" My brother Michael sneered, adjusting his Rolex, a small bonus from his CFO position at our family's company Mitchell Technologies. "Still doing spreadsheets for real companies? If they only knew that their biggest potential client, the one they were desperately trying to impress tomorrow, was actually my company." Nova Industries had become the holy grail of tech manufacturing, and everyone wanted a partnership. "Something like that," I murmured. "You know," my sister Catherine added, examining her manicure, "there's always a position in HR at Mitchell. Something more suitable for your abilities." My phone buzzed, a message from my actual executive assistant. "Ms. Mitchell, final preparations complete for tomorrow's meeting. The board is ready." "I'm happy where I am," I said. Father set down his fork, his voice carrying that familiar note of disappointment. "Happy? Doing menial work? You're a Mitchell. Though sometimes I wonder if you're worthy of the name." I thought about tomorrow's meeting, the one where Mitchell Technologies would try to convince Nova Industries to grant them a manufacturing contract. A contract that would save their failing company. "Actually," I started, but Mother cut me off. "Did you hear about Michael's latest achievement?" She beamed. "He's leading the pitch to Nova Industries tomorrow. Such an important meeting." Michael straightened importantly. "Their CEO is impossible to reach, totally reclusive. But they'll meet with us. They know quality when they see it. Quality. Like the outdated manufacturing processes that had Mitchell Technologies losing contracts left and right?" "Speaking of quality," Catherine smirked, "how many people work at your little consulting firm, Alex?" 10. 12. Try 12,000. Across 3 continents. "The Nova meeting is crucial," Father declared, swirling his scotch. "Mitchell Technologies needs this contract. Not that you'd understand the importance of real business, Alexandra." My phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen and had to suppress a smile. Perfect timing. "Excuse me," I said, "I should take this work call." "Work?" Michael laughed. "At this hour? What? Someone's Excel formula broke." I answered on speaker. "Alexandra Mitchell speaking. I'm sorry to disturb your evening, Ms. Mitchell." My assistant's voice filled the dining room, "but I wanted to confirm your meeting tomorrow morning. As CEO, you'll need to review Mitchell Technologies' proposal before their presentation." The silence that fell over the dining room was absolute. Mother's fork clattered against her plate. Father's Scotch glass froze halfway to his lips. Catherine's perfect posture crumpled. "CEO," Michael whispered. I smiled, enjoying the moment. "Yes, David, I'll be there. Please ensure all documentation of Mitchell Technologies' manufacturing defects is ready for review." "Of course, Ms. Mitchell. And shall I inform the board about their quality control issues, or wait until after the meeting?" Father's face went pale. "Quality control? That will be all, David," I said calmly. "Thank you." I ended the call and turned back to my family, taking in their shocked expressions. "Now about that HR position. You're the CEO of Nova Industries?" Catherine's voice cracked. "For the past 3 years," I confirmed, smoothing my Chanel dress. "No more bargain clothes they used to criticize. Though I'm surprised you didn't know. Nova only controls about 40% of the tech manufacturing market." Mother found her voice first. But you said you were just working at a consulting firm." "No, Mother. You assumed I was just working at a consulting firm. Just like you assumed I was worthless to this family. Never once did you actually ask what I did." Father stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "This is impossible. Nova Industries is a multi-billion-dollar company. You couldn't possibly run it." I raised an eyebrow. "Like I couldn't possibly succeed without Mitchell Technologies?" Like I couldn't possibly be more than worthless. My phone buzzed again with the family group chat. Michael, this must be a joke. Catherine, Dad, do something. Mother, how could she hide this? Father, emergency meeting. Office. Now. I gathered my things ready to leave them to their crisis planning. The meeting's at 9 a.m. sharp. I suggest you have your proposal ready. Though given what I know about your manufacturing processes, I wouldn't be too optimistic. Alexandra, Mother called after me, her voice trembling. Surely you won't reject your own family's company. I paused at the door. Funny. 3 years of calling me worthless and now suddenly family matters. The next morning I arrived at Nova Industries headquarters at 7 a.m. sharp. The November sun was just rising over the city, casting long shadows across the technological empire I'd built while my family was busy undermining me. Good morning, Ms. Mitchell. David greeted me with a tablet in hand. Your family has been at Mitchell Technologies since 5 a.m. They've revised their proposal 6 times already. I smiled, watching the city wake up from my corner office. Have they figured out how bad their situation really is? Not yet. But their stock dropped another 15% in pre-market trading. Your brother's been on CNBC twice, trying to project confidence. My phone buzzed with the family group chat. Michael, final proposal ready. They can't refuse us. Catherine, Alex won't dare humiliate the family name. Father, no child of mine would destroy Mitchell Technologies. Mother, please, let's discuss this as a family. If they only knew how long I'd been watching, waiting, building. While they were busy calling me worthless, I'd transformed Nova Industries into the most advanced manufacturing company in the world. Every major tech firm, every significant player in the industry, begged for our contracts. But more importantly, I'd spent years documenting Mitchell Technologies' failures. The quality control issues, the outdated processes, the corners cut, all carefully noted and filed away. Ms. Mitchell. David interrupted my thoughts. Your brother just went on Bloomberg, claiming Mitchell Technologies is at the forefront of innovation. I adjusted my Armani suit. No more embarrassing clothes they used to criticize. Let's see how innovative they are at 9 a.m. At 8:45, my Chief Operations Officer, Sarah Chin, entered my office. Everything's ready, Alexandra. The board has reviewed Mitchell Technologies' proposal. The numbers are concerning. How bad? Without our contract, they'll lose their last major client by end of quarter. Your father's been calling every 15 minutes. Another buzz from my phone. Michael, she'll see reason. We're family. Catherine, this is just her revenge. Father, no daughter would dare. Mother, someone please stop this nightmare. I checked my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows. The daughter they'd dismissed as worthless now controlled the fate of their company. The one they'd mocked had become the most powerful person in their industry. It's time, I said to Sarah. Let's review their proposal. The walk to the boardroom felt surreal. Through the glass walls, I could see my family already waiting, Father pacing, Michael frantically reviewing documents, Catherine stress-checking her makeup, Mother clutching her designer handbag like a lifeline. Ms. Mitchell. David murmured beside me. They're ready. I straightened my jacket, thinking of all those dinners, all those insults, all those declarations of my worthlessness. Perfect. Time to show them what I'm worth. The boardroom fell silent as I pushed open the doors. Michael's presentation folder slipped from his hands. Catherine's compact mirror clattered to the table. Mother's grip on her handbag tightened visibly. Good morning, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. Welcome to Nova Industries. Shall we begin? Father stepped forward, switching to his negotiation voice, the one he used for important business deals. Alexandra, let's be reasonable. Mitchell Technologies has been a leader in manufacturing for 40 years. Had been, I corrected, pressing a button. The room's screens lit up with their company's declining metrics. Your market share has dropped 60% in 3 years. Your technology is outdated. Your quality control. I paused, bringing up more damaging data. Well, let's just say I'm surprised you haven't faced more lawsuits. Michael jumped up. Those numbers are confidential. How did you get them? I smiled. I'm the CEO of Nova Industries. Every manufacturing contract, every quality report, Every industry analysis crosses my desk, including the ones you've tried to hide from your shareholders. Catherine's perfectly manicured hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. This is about those family dinners, isn't it? All those things we said. Actually, I cut her off. This is about business. Pure and simple. Mitchell Technologies is failing, and you're here to beg for a contract that might save you. So let's review your proposal. I opened the thick folder they'd submitted, though I'd already memorized every flawed detail. Your manufacturing processes are 3 generations behind current standards. Your quality control is virtually non-existent. And your cost structure. I looked directly at Michael, would bankrupt you within a year even with our contract. But we can improve. Michael protested. With Nova's technology we could modernize. I finished for him. Like I suggested 3 years ago before Father called me worthless and kicked me out of the company? Before you all laughed at my outdated ideas about quality control and process improvement. The room fell silent. 3 years ago, I continued, my voice carrying across the stunned boardroom, I came to Mitchell Technologies with a complete modernization plan. You dismissed it as worthless, just like you dismissed me. So I took those same ideas to Nova Industries. Built them into the most advanced manufacturing systems in the world. Created quality standards that transformed the industry. Turned a worthless vision into a billion-dollar reality. Father started to speak, but I held up my hand. Now here we are. Mitchell Technologies needs Nova Industries to survive. The worthless daughter holds the power. Ironic, isn't it? Through the glass walls, I could see other executives trying not to stare at the unfolding drama. The mighty Mitchell family brought low in their own industry, begging for help from the daughter they'd cast aside. What do you want? Father asked quietly. Want? I laughed softly. I don't want anything. This isn't personal, it's business. The same business you taught me, remember? No room for sentiment in manufacturing. Your words, Father. I distributed another document, my counter-proposal. However, Nova Industries is willing to consider a partnership. With conditions. They grabbed the papers desperately, but their relief was short-lived as they read the terms. These conditions, Michael started, are non-negotiable, I finished. Complete restructuring of Mitchell Technologies. Implementation of Nova's manufacturing standards. Father steps down as CEO. Professional management team installed. And full audit of all past quality control issues. This is extortion. Catherine exploded, her designer suit doing little to mask her panic. You're trying to steal our company. Steal. I raised an eyebrow. No, I'm offering to save it. There's a difference. Though I understand why you might not see it, Mitchell Technologies hasn't saved anything in years. I pressed another button and new data filled the screens. Let's review your last quarter's performance. Production efficiency, down 45%. Quality control failures, up 82%. Customer satisfaction. I paused for effect. Well, let's just say even your paid reviewers can't find anything positive to say. Father gripped the edge of the conference table. You've been watching us fail. All this time. Learning from your failures, I corrected. Every mistake you made, every corner you cut, every client you lost, they all taught me exactly what not to do at Nova Industries. Mother found her voice. But why didn't you tell us? When you started Nova. Tell you. I laughed. Like when I tried to tell you about Mitchell's problems 3 years ago. What was it you said, Father? You're worthless to this family? The memory hung in the air between us. I remember that night perfectly, I continued, my voice steady. Standing in your office, presenting data showing exactly how Mitchell Technologies was falling behind. Warning you about emerging competitors, about changing industry standards. And what did you do? Laughed me out of the room. Said I was worthless. We didn't mean. Catherine started. Yes, you did, I cut her off. You meant every word. Just like you meant it every time you mocked my ideas, dismissed my concerns, treated me like I was nothing. So I became everything you said I couldn't be. I brought up Nova Industries' growth charts. While you were busy calling me worthless, I built this. While you were clinging to outdated methods, I revolutionized manufacturing. While you were losing clients, I was becoming the client everyone wanted. Michael slumped in his chair. The innovation division I've been trying to build is 10 years behind what Nova already has, I finished. Your entire R&D budget wouldn't cover one day of our operations. That's how far behind you are. I distributed copies of Nova's latest technological breakthroughs, innovations that made Mitchell's best work look like ancient history. But we can change, Father said desperately. With your help. I help. I stood slowly, commanding the room. 3 years ago my help was worthless. 3 years ago I was worthless. What changed, Father? The daughter or the desperation? The silence was deafening. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Mitchell Technologies has 2 choices. Option 1, reject our partnership offer. Continue your decline. Be obsolete within 6 months. Option 2, accept our terms. All of them. Transform into something that might actually survive the next decade. And if we refuse? Catherine challenged. Then I'll offer this same deal to your competitors. Business is business, right? Isn't that what you taught me, Father? The next 4 hours were intense negotiations, but in the end they had no choice. By afternoon, Mitchell Technologies had signed Nova Industries' partnership agreement. The company that had called me worthless now answered to me. As the board members filed out, Mother lingered behind. All those years, she said softly. All those times we called you worthless were the best motivation I could have asked for, I finished. Nothing drives success like spite. 1 year later, I stood in my expanded office, watching both Nova and Mitchell facilities operate on my monitoring screens. Michael had surprisingly adapted well to our new systems, finally understanding why innovation mattered. Catherine had resigned, unable to accept working under her worthless sister. And Father? He watched from retirement as his greatest failure became his company's only hope for survival. The family dinner tradition continued, but differently now. No more insults, no more declarations of worthlessness. Amazing how perspective changes when the worthless one becomes invaluable. My phone buzzed with a new family group chat message. Michael, production numbers are incredible, sis. Thanks for teaching me real innovation. Catherine, miss you at family dinners. Never thought I'd say this, but you were right. Mother, Sunday dinner? Promise no more talk about worth. Father, you didn't just save our company, you made it what it should have been all along.
The Thompson family had a reputation to maintain. Old money, social connections, and impeccable taste were the pillars upon which Margaret Thompson built her identity. So when her only son David fell in love with me, a seemingly ordinary kindergarten teacher from a town no one in their circle had heard of, she made her disapproval crystal clear. She seems nice, Margaret had said after our first meeting, the word nice carrying the weight of profound disappointment. But honestly, David, what could you possibly have in common with someone so simple? David defended me, of course. He loved that I was unpretentious and genuine, qualities in short supply among the social climbers he'd grown up around. But Margaret's campaign of subtle undermining continued for the 2 years we dated, reaching its peak when David proposed with his grandmother's ring. Congratulations, Margaret had said coldly over the phone when David shared the news. I suppose we'll need to start planning immediately. There's so much Sarah will need to learn about how things are done in our world. Our world. As if I were an alien visiting from another planet rather than someone born just 50 miles away. The wedding planning became Margaret's battlefield. Every decision, the venue, the caterer, the flowers, became an opportunity to highlight the gulf between my limited experience and the Thompson family standards. I tried to remain gracious, reminding myself that this was about marrying David, not winning his mother's approval. Then came the dress shopping expedition. Margaret had insisted we visit an exclusive bridal salon in the city where, she informed me, Thompson women had been selecting their wedding gowns for generations. The appointment had been scheduled months in advance, and Margaret had arranged for several of her closest friends to accompany us. Women whose names regularly appeared in society pages and charity gala photographs. It's tradition, she explained when I suggested keeping the shopping party smaller. These women have known David since he was a child. Their opinion matters. What she really meant, of course, was that my opinion mattered less. The salon was exactly as intimidating as I'd expected, all crystal chandeliers and champagne flutes, with gowns displayed like museum pieces. The owner greeted Margaret with air kisses and exclamations about how long it had been since they'd seen each other. "And this must be the bride," she said, examining me with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Yes, this is Sarah," Margaret replied. "We'll need something that flatters her figure, perhaps something with sleeves, and nothing too fashion-forward. Something classic to elevate her natural simplicity." I bit my tongue as the salon staff measured me and discussed my challenging proportions as if I weren't present. Margaret's friends sipped champagne and reminisced about their own wedding dresses, each apparently more exquisite than the last. After trying on 7 different gowns, each met with subtle grimaces and whispered consultations among Margaret's committee, I was exhausted and close to tears. "Perhaps we should continue another day," the salon owner suggested delicately. "Finding the perfect gown can be a process." That's when my phone rang. It was my mother. "Sarah, honey, I know you're busy with the Thompson dress shopping today, but I wanted to let you know that package we discussed arrived. It's even more beautiful than we hoped." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "That's wonderful news, Mom. I'll stop by later to see it." When I ended the call, Margaret was watching me with narrow-eyed suspicion. "A package? Something for the wedding?" she asked. "Just something my mother wanted me to see," I replied vaguely. "Speaking of which, I should probably wrap up here. Thank you all for your time and input." Margaret looked affronted. "But we haven't found anything suitable yet." "Sarah, this isn't like picking up something from a department store. A proper wedding gown requires time and consideration." "I understand," I said, summoning my kindergarten teacher patience. "And I appreciate everyone's help today. But I think I need some time to reflect on the options." 2 weeks later, Margaret called an emergency meeting at her home to discuss what she termed concerning developments with the wedding planning. David and I arrived to find her in the sunroom, surrounded by wedding magazines and sample table settings. "Sarah," she began without preamble, "I've heard disturbing rumors that you've purchased a wedding dress without proper consultation. Some off-the-rack item from a boutique in your hometown?" I took a deep breath. "I have found my dress, yes." Margaret's perfectly manicured hand fluttered to her throat. "But we haven't approved anything. The salon was preparing a selection of appropriate options for our next appointment." "I appreciate that, but I found something I love." "Well," Margaret said with forced brightness, "I'm sure it's nice. Perhaps we can have it altered by professionals to make it more suitable." "Where did you find this dress?" "Actually, it was my mother who found it." Margaret exchanged knowing glances with her friend Beatrice, who had apparently been summoned for moral support. "I see. Well, that explains a lot. I'm sure your mother meant well, but she couldn't possibly understand the standards expected at a Thompson wedding." David, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "Mom, I'm sure Sarah's dress is beautiful, and ultimately, it's her decision." "Of course it is," Margaret replied with a tight smile. "I simply want to make sure Sarah doesn't feel uncomfortable when she's standing next to proper society brides in their photos. People notice these things." "Perhaps," Beatrice suggested with fake helpfulness, "we could see this dress, just to get a sense of what alterations might be needed." I hesitated, then nodded. "Actually, I brought it with me today. I thought you might want to see it." Margaret's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "You brought it here? Today?" "It's in the car. I'll go get it." When I returned carrying a garment bag, Margaret had composed herself, clearly prepared to be diplomatic about whatever fashion disaster she expected to emerge. David squeezed my hand reassuringly as I unzipped the bag. The dress that emerged was a masterpiece of understated elegance, an ivory silk column with delicate beadwork along the neckline and a subtle train. Even on the hanger, it was clearly something special. "What a shame your family couldn't afford something better," my future mother-in-law sneered, examining my wedding dress with obvious disappointment. "Everyone will know you don't belong in our circle." I stayed silent as she continued her critique. "It looks like a discount store knockoff," she declared, reaching for the collar. "The beadwork is clumsy, and this silk is clearly synthetic." When she flipped the collar to check the label, her face went completely white. "This is impossible." Because there, on the designer label, was a name even Margaret Thompson approached with reverence. Alessandra Ricci, the Italian designer whose creations were worn by royalty and whose waiting list was years long. "There must be some mistake," she stammered. This can't be authentic. How would you possibly? It's genuine, I confirmed quietly. A gift from my godmother. Your godmother? Beatrice echoed incredulously. Who exactly is your godmother? Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. David went to answer it, returning moments later with my mother and a woman Margaret clearly recognized immediately. Elena? Margaret gasped, rising to her feet. Elena Ritchie, what are you doing here? The woman who entered, elegant, silver-haired, dressed in simple but exquisite linen, smiled warmly. Maggie Thompson, it's been 30 years? Still intimidating young brides, I see. Some things never change. My mother stepped forward, squeezing my shoulders supportively. I believe you've been getting to know my daughter, though perhaps not as well as you thought. Margaret looked between them in growing confusion. I don't understand. How do you know Elena Ritchie? Elena, the Elena Ritchie, sister of Alessandra and co-founder of their fashion empire, laughed lightly. Catherine and I were roommates at university before I moved back to Milan. She was the first American to model for our early collections. Model? Margaret repeated weakly, staring at my mother, the kindergarten teacher's aide from a small town who apparently had an entirely different past than the one Margaret had assumed. Just for a few years, my mother said modestly, before I met Sarah's father and decided to move back home. But Elena and I remained close. She's Sarah's godmother, and when she heard about the wedding, I insisted on designing her dress personally, Elena finished. Catherine was like a sister during those early struggling years. Her daughter is family. Margaret sank back into her chair, speechless for perhaps the first time in her life. Her friend Beatrice was staring at my mother with newfound fascination. You're Catherine Jensen, the face of Ritchie's breakthrough '89 collection. I still have those magazine spreads. You disappeared from the fashion world so suddenly. My mother smiled. I found another calling, one that made me happier than the fashion world ever did. I felt David's arm slip around my waist as we watched his mother attempting to recalibrate everything she thought she knew. So you see, Margaret, I said gently, while I appreciate your guidance with the wedding planning, I do have some resources of my own. And more importantly, I know exactly who I am and where I come from, even if you've made some incorrect assumptions. The silence that followed was broken by Elena, who clapped her hands decisively. Shall we discuss the rest of the wedding party? I've brought some sample designs for the mother of the groom. Something that would complement Sarah's dress beautifully, Maggie, if you're interested. 2 days later, David and I were having dinner at my parents' modest but comfortable home. The home where I'd grown up, surrounded by photographs of my mother's brief but significant modeling career alongside pictures of school plays and soccer tournaments. I've never seen my mother speechless before. David marveled, helping my father grill vegetables in the backyard. She's been almost deferential since meeting your mom and Elena. My father laughed. Catherine has that effect on people when they discover her past. She never made a big deal of it. That's not her style. But she was quite something in her day. Still is. I called from the patio table where I was helping my mother set up dinner. My mother smiled. The funny thing is, Margaret and I probably would have found common ground if she'd bothered to ask rather than assume. We both left high-profile worlds to focus on family. We both value education and community, but she was so busy sizing me up for where I fit in her social hierarchy that she never saw me at all. The wedding planning shifted dramatically after what David jokingly called the dress revelation. Margaret didn't exactly become warm, but her approach changed from condescension to careful respect. She consulted rather than dictated, and occasionally even deferred to my mother's connections, which turned out to include not just Elena Ritchie but several other notable figures from her previous life. On the day of the wedding, as my mother helped me into the exquisite dress that had caused such a stir, I reflected on the unexpected gift Margaret's snobbery had delivered, the chance to bridge 2 parts of my family history and to claim my own identity in the process. You know, my mother said, adjusting my veil, in all my years wearing runway creations, I never felt as beautiful in a dress as I know you will today. Because today you're marrying for love, not for appearance. When I walked down the aisle toward David, I passed Margaret in the front row. For once, her focus wasn't on how things looked to others or whether standards were being maintained. Instead, there were tears in her eyes as she watched her son's face light up at the sight of me. At the reception, Elena Ritchie raised a toast that perfectly captured the journey we'd all taken. To David and Sarah, and to the two families joining today. May you all discover, as I have throughout my career, that true elegance comes not from labels or pedigrees, but from authenticity, kindness, and the courage to see beyond first impressions. Margaret, seated beside Elena at the head table, actually clinked glasses with my mother at these words. Later, as David and I danced under the stars, he whispered, "You know what my favorite part of that dress is?" "What?" I asked, expecting him to comment on the exquisite beadwork or perfect fit. That underneath all its fancy pedigree, it's being worn by the down-to-earth kindergarten teacher I fell in love with, the one who knows exactly who she is, with or without designer labels. I kissed him, grateful for a partner who had seen me clearly from the beginning, something his mother was only now learning to do. 6 months after the wedding, Margaret invited my mother and me to tea at her home. The pretension that had characterized our earlier visits was noticeably absent as she led us to a sun-dappled patio rather than the formal drawing room. "I've been doing some thinking," she said, uncharacteristically hesitant, "about first impressions and hidden depths, about how we present ourselves to the world and what we choose to reveal." My mother and I exchanged surprised glances as Margaret continued. "Catherine, when we first met, I made assumptions based on your current life, never imagining your past experiences. I judged Sarah through the same limited lens." She paused, clearly finding this difficult. "The truth is, before I married into the Thompson family, my background was much closer to yours than anyone in my social circle knows. My father owned a hardware store. I worked as a sales clerk through college." This revelation stunned us both. Margaret Thompson, the arbiter of old money social standards, had reinvented herself just as thoroughly as my mother had, but in the opposite direction. When I met Philip Thompson, I was determined to fit into his world perfectly. I studied how the right people dressed, spoke, entertained. I erased every trace of my origins until I convinced even myself that I'd always belonged. She looked at me directly. "When David brought you home, Sarah, I didn't see a wonderful woman who made my son happy. I saw a reminder of everything I'd worked to distance myself from. I was terrified you might expose the fraud I sometimes still feel like." "Margaret," my mother said gently, "we all create different versions of ourselves throughout our lives. There's no shame in transformation." "The shame," Margaret replied, "is in denying where we came from, in treating others as less worthy because of where we think they belong in some imaginary hierarchy." She reached across the table and, in an unprecedented gesture, covered my hand with hers. "I hope you'll give me the chance to be a better mother-in-law than I've been so far, and perhaps a friend in time." As we drove home afterward, my mother and I tried to process this unexpected turn. "Do you think she's sincere?" I asked. "Yes," my mother said thoughtfully. "Recognition is a powerful thing. Sometimes people need to see themselves reflected in unexpected places before they can acknowledge their own truth. Like seeing a kindergarten teacher in an Alessandra Ricci original." My mother laughed. "Exactly, but the dress didn't change who you are, Sarah. It just helped Margaret see past her own prejudice. And that, perhaps, was the greatest gift of all, not the designer dress or the social connections, but the reminder that our true worth has nothing to do with labels, whether they're sewn into a wedding gown or attached to a family name." A year later, when I discovered I was pregnant, Margaret was among the first people we told. Her eyes filled with tears as she hugged me, a genuine embrace without concern for appearances. "This child," she said, "will have the best of all worlds. Thompson determination, Jensen creativity, and parents who know the value of authenticity." As we left her home that evening, David squeezed my hand. "Who would have thought a wedding dress could change so much?" "Not the dress," I corrected him, "the willingness to look beyond it." The glass and steel headquarters of Nexus AI gleamed in the morning San Francisco sun as I swiped my keycard one last time. The startup I'd built from my garage into an $800 million company was about to become the scene of the most calculated betrayal in Silicon Valley history. I'm David Chin, founder and, until approximately 1 hour from now, CEO of Nexus AI, the company revolutionizing natural language processing. Our breakthrough algorithm had caught Google's attention, leading to acquisition talks that would make us all wealthy beyond dreams. At least that was the plan until my brother Michael decided he deserved more than his fair share. Morning, David. Jenny from HR called out cheerfully. Big board meeting today. If she only knew. Yeah, should be interesting. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt longer than usual. In my briefcase, I carried proof of what Michael had been planning. Secret meetings with board members, backdated stock transfers, carefully manipulated voting rights. Classic corporate coup tactics executed by my own brother. What he didn't know was that I had my own insurance policy, filed quietly 2 years ago when I first noticed his ambition starting to overshadow his loyalty. The boardroom was already full when I arrived. Michael sat in his CEO chair, perfectly groomed in his $1,000 suit, Samsung tablet ready for notes. Our other board members, 2 VCs from Sequoia Capital, our angel investor Tom Roberts, and our CFO Sarah Williams, all avoided my eyes. David, Michael nodded coolly. Shall we begin? I took my seat at the head of the table, noting how everyone subtly shifted toward Michael's side. They'd made their choices. Before we start, I said calmly, I'd like to address the elephant in the room. Specifically, the planned vote to remove me as CEO. The room froze. Michael's practiced smile didn't waver, but his knuckles whitened around his tablet. I have copies of all the communications, I continued. The secret meetings at the Battery, the stock transfers to create a voting majority, even a drafted press release announcing my decision to step down to pursue other opportunities. David, Michael started, his voice smooth as ever. You're obviously stressed about the Google acquisition. Maybe you should take some time to clear my head. I finished for him. Like you suggested to the board I needed. Right before proposing yourself as interim CEO, Sarah at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. The Sequoia partners maintained their practiced neutral expressions. The fact is, Michael said, standing now, the board has concerns about your leadership. The Google deal requires steady hands. Your recent behavior suggests you might not be the right person to guide us through this crucial transition. Translation. I'd refused to accept Google's initial offer, knowing our technology was worth far more. Michael, eager for his big payday, had been undermining me ever since. Let's be clear about what's really happening, I said, opening my laptop. You've spent 6 months convincing the board I'm unstable because I wouldn't take a lowball offer. You've manipulated stock holdings to create a voting majority. And now you're planning to push me out and quickly close a deal that undervalues our company by at least $400 million. These accusations are ridiculous, Michael snapped. But Tom Roberts was already pulling out his phone, probably checking the stock transfer dates I'd mentioned. Shall we vote then? I asked quietly. The next 15 minutes were corporate theater at its finest. Michael presented his carefully prepared case for my removal. Concerns about my erratic leadership, fears about losing the Google deal, veiled suggestions about my mental state. The board listened, nodded, and voted exactly as he orchestrated. The motion carries, Michael announced, not quite hiding his triumph. David Chen is hereby removed as CEO of Nexus A, effective immediately. I will assume the role of interim CEO to ensure a smooth transition and successful completion of the acquisition negotiations. I stood slowly, gathering my things. Congratulations, brother. Just one small detail you might want to consider. Security will escort you out, he said dismissively. Before they do, you should probably take a look at this. I projected an email onto the screen behind him. This just came in from the U.S. Patent Office. Michael frowned, turning to read. I watched the blood drain from his face. That's impossible, he whispered. Patent number 14,382,957. I read aloud. Fundamental natural language processing algorithm utilizing quantum-inspired neural networks. Sole inventor, David Chen. Filed 2 years ago, granted this morning. The Sequoia partners were already on their phones, presumably calling their lawyers. Tom Roberts was turning an interesting shade of pale. The algorithm that makes our technology work. I continued pleasantly. The one Google wants to buy. I developed it before Nexus A even existed. Before I brought you in as COO. The company has been operating under a personal license from me, which, I checked my watch, expired approximately 2 minutes ago when you removed me as CEO. You can't do this, Michael sputtered. The company owns all intellectual property. Developed while working for the company, yes, I agreed. But this patent predates Nexus AI. Check the timestamps. Check the documentation. Check anything you want. My lawyers already have. The security guards Michael had called were waiting by the door, but no one was moving to escort me out. Everyone was too busy reading the patent details now displayed on their screens. So here's the situation, I said, packing up my laptop. You can have the company, Michael. But without a license to my algorithm, what you have is an empty shell. No technology, no products, no $800 million acquisition. Just a very nice office with a great view of the bay. We'll challenge this, he threatened. The board will. The board, Tom Roberts interrupted sharply, will need to reassess its position. David, perhaps we should discuss this privately? I shook my head. No need. My resignation is effective immediately, as per the vote. I'll be starting a new company, one that owns a rather valuable patent. I hear Google is interested in natural language processing technology. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and Michael, Mom's expecting us for dinner on Sunday. Try not to be late this time. The security guards stepped aside, apparently unsure who they were supposed to be removing. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I heard the boardroom erupt into chaos. Jenny from HR caught me in the lobby. David, is everything okay upstairs? I smiled, thinking about the other insurance policy hidden in my desk at home. The one that would really turn Silicon Valley upside down. Everything's fine, I assured her. Just some unexpected family business. But tomorrow? I grinned. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting. The next 24 hours in Silicon Valley were chaos. TechCrunch broke the story first. Nexus AI CEO ousted. Major patent dispute threatens Google acquisition. Within hours, my phone was blowing up with calls from every tech journalist, VC firm, and competitor in the industry. I ignored them all, sitting in my home office, watching the story unfold exactly as I planned. The patent was just the beginning. The real bomb was still waiting to drop. David, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. Google's CEO is on line 1. And your mother on line 2. I smiled. Right on schedule. Put Mom through first. David Chen. Mom's voice crackled with familiar authority. What is this I'm reading about you and your brother? The entire Chinese community is talking. Michael tried to steal my company, Mom. And you embarrassed him in front of the entire board? In front of important investors? Have you forgotten everything about family loyalty? I thought about the folder on my desk, printouts of Michael's secret emails plotting my removal, dating back almost a year. Sometimes loyalty has to be earned, Mom. Is Michael there with you? A pause. He's been in his old room since this morning. Hasn't come out. Good. Tell him to stay there. He'll want to see the news in about an hour. David. Trust me, Mom, and maybe start the rice cooker. We're going to have company for dinner. I hung up and switched to line 1. Hello, Sundar. I was wondering when you'd call. Sundar Pichai, Google's CEO, didn't waste time on pleasantries. That's quite a patent you've been sitting on, David. Want to explain why we're just learning about it now? Because until today, there was no reason to mention it. Nexus AI had a perpetual license to use the technology as long as I remained CEO. Now, I shrugged, though he couldn't see it. Now things are more complicated. The acquisition deal is dead, I finished, at least in its current form. But I'm happy to discuss a new deal, one that reflects the true value of the technology. There was a long pause. The original offer was fair. The original offer was $800 million for technology that will revolutionize AI. Technology that, as of this morning, legally belongs to me personally, not Nexus AI. Would you like to know what Microsoft offered 20 minutes ago? Another pause. When can you be at our office? I can't. Family dinner tonight, but you're welcome to join us. My mother makes excellent dumplings. To his credit, Sundar caught on quickly. Text me the address. I'll bring wine. The next call was to Jenny from HR, who had already received offers from 3 headhunters. How would you like to be head of personnel at a new startup? One with actual ownership of its core technology. When do I start? By noon, I'd secured commitments from most of Nexus AI's key engineers. By 2, I had verbal offers from 5 major VC firms. But the real show was set for 3 o'clock, when the second part of my insurance policy would become public. Right on schedule, Bloomberg broke the story. Nexus AI's core technology built on open source code. Anonymous source provides documentation. I watched from my home office as Nexus AI's stock price started to plummet. The anonymous source, actually my carefully documented code repository, showed that while my patented algorithm was original, Michael had built significant parts of the company's other technology on unlicensed open source code. The phone rang again. "Michael, you knew," he said without preamble. "You knew about the open source code all along." "Of course I knew. I'm the one who warned you about licensing issues 6 months ago, right before you started plotting to remove me. The company is tanking. The Google deal is dead. Are you happy now? Actually, Google's CEO is coming to Mom's for dinner. We're going to discuss a new deal, one that involves my new company, which owns both the patent and proper licenses for all its code." Silence. "You should come too," I added. "Mom's making dumplings." "Why?" His voice cracked. "Why not just destroy me completely?" "Because you're still my brother. And because Mom would never forgive me." 7 o'clock. "Don't be late." The scene at our parents' house that evening was surreal. Mom's dining room table, where we eaten Sunday dinners our entire lives, now hosted the CEOs of Google and Microsoft, 3 prominent VCs, and our family's old lawyer Uncle Wei, who'd helped me file the patent 2 years ago. Michael arrived last, looking like he aged years in a day. Mom, bless her, acted like having tech billionaires at her table was completely normal. "Eat, eat," she insisted, piling dumplings onto plates. Growing boys need strength for business. Over dinner, the new deal took shape. My new company would acquire Nexus AI in a stock swap, with Google then acquiring the combined entity for $2.1 billion. Michael would keep his shares but step down from any management role. Most importantly, the brothers Chen would remain brothers. "I still don't understand," Michael said later as we sat on the back porch like we used to as kids. "You knew what I was planning. You could have stopped it earlier, exposed the open source issue, ruined me. Why wait?" I sipped the vintage wine Sundar had brought. "Because I needed you to show everyone who you really are, and who I really am." "And who's that?" "You're the brother who'd betray his own family for money. I'm the one who'd find a way to save the company and the family." He winced. "Mom's never going to let me forget this." "No," I agreed. "But she's also never going to let me forget that family comes first, even when family betrays you." "The new company," he said quietly. "There's really no place for me?" "Not in management, but your shares are still worth about $100 million. Not bad for someone who tried to steal his brother's company." Mom came out with more dumplings, insisting the CEOs of America's largest tech companies needed feeding. I watched her fuss over everyone equally, the son who tried to commit corporate fratricide and the son who'd outmaneuvered him. The billionaires and the family members, all getting the same maternal treatment. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, contracts, and press releases. The media loved the story. Tech brothers' battle ends in billion-dollar peace deal. The new company, Phoenix AI, launched with a dream team of engineers and a clear ownership structure. Google fast-tracked the acquisition. Microsoft made a competing offer, and the final price settled at $2.4 billion. Michael took a long vacation, then started a venture capital firm focusing on ethical tech investments. He still comes to Sunday dinner, though he's quieter now, more thoughtful. Mom makes sure we sit next to each other. Yesterday, at the signing ceremony for the Google acquisition, a reporter asked if I was worried about other family betrayals. In technology, like in family, I replied, the best security isn't in patents or contracts. It's in remembering that every line of code, like every relationship, needs to be built on trust and maintained with care. The night after the deal closed, I found an old photo on Mom's wall. Michael and me at my first science fair, proudly showing off a simple computer program we'd written together. Next to it, she'd hung a framed copy of the acquisition announcement. "To remind you both," she said firmly, "that success means nothing without family." She was right, of course. The patent, the open source code revelation, the negotiations, they were all just leverage. The real victory wasn't in the billions or the headlines. It was in finding a way to save both the company and the family. Michael and I still argue about business strategies at Sunday dinner. Mom still makes too many dumplings. Dad still tells us we work too hard. But now there's a new understanding between us all. Success isn't just about winning. It's about how you win. The tech world moves fast. Fortunes rise and fall, but family endures. Sometimes it takes a betrayal to remind us of that truth, and sometimes it takes a brother's forgiveness to show us how to move forward. Today, Phoenix AI is revolutionizing artificial intelligence. Our technology is changing the world, and the Chen brothers are still having Sunday dinner at mom's table. Different seats maybe, different perspectives certainly, but still family. As for me, I keep the patent framed in my office, next to that old science fair photo. A reminder that in business, as in family, the best victories are the ones that leave room for redemption.